Hello everyone, this is step 4 in the process of developing our own practice course. Again, I am in my demo course for Presentation Zen. I've gone through the process of identifying my topics, breaking those out. I've also identified the objectives that we're going to cover over the course of the course as well as within the units. Then I went and thought about those, and I said, okay, how do I know when a student has mastered those? Those would be demonstrated via an assessment, and I build up an assessment strategy, putting together several assessments to kind of identify and assess at every step within that learning progression. I also then thought about the process of taking those and making those collaborative in nature and going beyond just the basics, not just taking a basic quiz or a basic forum, but making those more of an instructional strategy, making them, as we saw within our course, things like the expert opinion or the scenario or the jigsaw or whatever the case is. All of that is on that end where we're looking at the assessment and activity portion of the thing. We get into week 4 within our course, and the thing that we're looking at now is how you go in and scaffold learning. So if I'm thinking of that learning progression, I'm saying I'm progressing up, I'm getting more and more skills that are building on top of each other, but there comes a point where I can't just do it on my own. I have to learn new content, new skills in some manner. And in some cases, in traditional education, sometimes we just give that to the students right away, outside of the context of, are they ready for it? How does this fit in the big picture? It's just like, hey, it's another day in class, so we're going to learn something new, and that can sometimes be self-defeating. In an online class, that's actually one of the benefits, is because it kind of does lend itself more to what we call scaffolding, where you only provide the lessons when they're applicable, when they're useful for learning. And moreover, the student really only has to access the lessons when they're useful for learning. The problem, of course, is that students don't often know when they're ready for a lesson and not. So it really helps to have that all sequenced correctly, so that as the student's progressing through the course, they know when to access what. Now that's we're going to get into the next step, where we talk about the transitions and the navigation within a course. But for right now, we're going to look at how do we go and we scaffold lessons. Now this is really a big topic. There's a lot that's done within this, because this is traditionally the most amount of time it takes to go and develop a course. And I say this having looked at many courses, I review courses to approve on the AAA catalog, and this is a challenge. I have seen many courses that, in all frankness, are too light on content, and I think by and large that's where you start. You go, you build courses, and there's just not a lot of instructional content. Now sometimes there's a lot of activity. Sometimes there's a lot of resources, because those are easier to create and kind of do a lot of. And you have to be a little bit more selective for those to say, are these truly useful and get towards the outcomes I want? Content though, instructional content, and not just here's some PDFs or articles that I found, which are resources, but instructional content that the instructor has created, tends to be something that starts off lighter in the course's evolution and builds up over time. I'm here to tell you, that's okay. The first time you launch a course, your lessons might be less of them and might be skimpier, and it's okay to build them up as you go. I've done that. My lessons have gotten better over time. I've redone my lessons. I've changed their approach. I've addressed new skills within them. And I think through a very nebulous topic like how do you teach online, and I try to articulate that into more discrete skills over time. And so my understanding of the big picture changes, and so the lessons that I provide also change that. And again, every lesson I create goes to reinforce a specific skill in that learning progression. So as a reminder, in our course we had 4 topics that we were going to do, and I've identified the first 2. This idea of awakening to the fact that PowerPoint presentation, as we just kind of intuitively do is not really the best way to go and do it. And then I talked about preparation. Topic 3 is the design process, and then topic 4 will be the delivery process. And within each, there are some skills that you go and learn, some concepts more so than skills, because that's what Zen is about, is some philosophical concepts. So the concept of mindfulness, the concept of visual supremacy, the concept of all these different things. And each one of those are things that is new learning. People don't know about them. I need to go and really explore those. And I don't want to necessarily start off a course with that information right away. I want them to understand why it's an issue first, and then I'll fill in with what I've got. So, and again, we'll talk more about this next time. So I've got a forum, and I'm talking about things where they're going to analyze where they don't feel that they're doing presentations very well. What feels off? And I'm going to explore that a little bit. I do want them to kind of reflect on a couple of the principles that I've got. Now, to do this, I have gone and actually created lessons. And I've used a tool called SoftChalk. You've seen that within the course, because I use that same tool to go and create the OLLI lessons here. You can see here are the lessons. I went and created one over every topic. Now, the overview for the course is kind of more of an introduction thing, but I do have an introduction. This actually is on this awareness phase. If we click on that particular lesson, I do go through and I talk about how I went through that discovery and such. In this case, I want to add this to my course. You don't have to use SoftChalk, but if it is something that you have some familiarity with, you kind of like it as a tool, you want to explore with it, you can. In that case, I grab the link from my SoftChalk area, not this one above, because that leaves all of this other dashboard type stuff here. I just want to grab the straight link for it there. I go back to my course, Presentation Zen, got to get in the right course, turn on my editing. And since this is actually a lesson that is outside of Moodle, I'm going to go ahead and add in a URL. But I do want to label it something that will make sense. So I'm just going to call it awareness, or I could call it one person's story or discovering Zen. I like discovering Zen, actually. We'll go back here and call it that. Instead of being a little too on the nose and talking about the principle. Okay, I'm going to put in the link. Down here there is a description. I want to show you something I haven't shown you before. I'm going to put in just kind of a throwaway sentence here, but you're going to kind of notice that it's transitional in text. Again, we're going to talk about that more in our next video, but you're going to see why this is a benefit for you as you build your course. So I say this lesson is my journey into awareness of my own shortcomings. In it, I showcase many of my original presentations. Okay, and I could put in more. I could say, as you go through the lesson, think about X, Y, and Z, that type of thing. I'm going to check this box right here to say display that description on the course page. Now, this can be done with anything. You can do it with quizzes. You can do it with assignments. You can do it with whatever you'd like. And I haven't really talked about that. But the description area, you can actually post that so it goes on the front page. I'm going to make, I like to make my lessons a pop-up. And I do make mine a little bigger in size, so it pops up a little bigger for resolution. You don't have to do that. Again, this is whatever option you use, you've got different ways in which that can be displayed. And I'll let you play around with that. I'm not going to really talk about too much of a right way and a wrong way in this video here. I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And you can see here, it kind of lists out what I have. I'm going to go back to the course. And then if I go down, now you see the lesson listed with my own descriptions. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that, I think I put that after the forum. And again, this helps kind of people understand what they're doing when they click on that lesson. Okay, so that's the aspect of going and putting in a lesson for a particular category. for our course, we want to do one lesson per each unit. Okay, now here's the kind of the elephant in the room. This one was already built. It took me a considerable amount of time to go and build. 16 pages. In all frankness, this lesson took me probably about 4 or 5 hours to go and type up. And I'm pretty good at it in terms of being efficient at it. I can kind of spit out language, typing language pretty quickly. I'm a former blogger and things like that. So when people aren't as good at that, it can take even longer. Now, I've done some design things too with images, and I've embedded videos and some other things there too. I've got some sidebars and such that SoftChalk allows. So within your own lesson, that is not expected. We're not really grading the quality of the lesson design, the visual design, the interactivity that you put in it. That's really not a goal for you with this. In fact, what you might do is, if you wanted to use SoftChalk, you might go and use it to just kind of map out or outline your lessons. So I've got some different topics. One person's story, okay, the early years, what did I do there? How did I go about creating my lessons there? And then, I kind of split this onto separate PowerPoints, but here's an embedded early PowerPoint back when it was called the Model Core Curriculum. It takes me on a walk down memory lane there. Okay, and then I talk about it in retrospect, what did I think about that and such. I'm moving on to different topics as I go. In my own mind, I've outlined this idea, this journey I want to take them on it's my journey. I want to show them how I went through that. And I've broken it down into different topics that kind of go page by page. The text by which I can flesh out maybe at a later time, maybe in the interest of time, I just kind of bullet down some of the thoughts that I'm going to have. You don't want to have a lesson that is bullets in general, because that's basically a PowerPoint in an online format. You've got to have that transitional text, but we don't have all the time in the world. And again, that's part of the effort that you do in the Designing Online Lessons course. So that's okay if you want to do that. You can use SoftChalk if you'd like to go and do that. You can use PowerPoint to do the same thing. SoftChalk builds this nice navigation tool, and I really recommend it. But in the interest of time, you say, maybe I don't really want to learn a new tool at this point in time. Maybe I just want to use what I know. PowerPoint would work well. You can go create a PowerPoint and save it and upload that as a file. You can use a Google Drive document, save it, and then you can either embed it or link to it. And that's actually what a lot of people do, is they do that. So let's take a look at a couple other options. I've got a couple other presentations that I've created before, and I've gone through them when I created them. This is something that I did in a webinar, a national webinar, through ISKME, which is a national organization, and they wanted me to tell a story about states and what they're doing with OER. And so my slides, I didn't put very much in. I just put in enough in to kind of preview what it was, but I didn't want them reading this while I'm talking to them. And so that works out pretty well because I've identified what the topic is and here. And then I got to Iowa. Here are some specific things that make it different than other states. I did want to bullet this out just to kind of hit some high points and such. But you can see where, okay, now, if I took a PowerPoint that I've already done, it actually kind of works that I could go in and start typing up, filling in the blanks, so to speak, the text about this, because I'm not going to be there to talk about it. I could go in and actually, just type it out, describe the program that I'm talking about. So AA Learning Online, what type of program is it? What does it do? Why am I telling you this? What's unique about Iowa? Let me give you a little background, and then let me give you into some specific items. What are some of the challenges that Iowa faces? I could type that out and such. Okay, so that's one thing that I encourage you to do, is to take an existing PowerPoint, flesh that out into your own description, your own narration, so that you've got storyline. That would be something I think would be more doable in the time constraint. Maybe you don't even finish depending on the length of PowerPoint, but you can get a start and get a practice on it. And the more you do now, the less you have to do when you launch the course. Here's another one that I've got. And to give you an idea for this one, I've got a lesson here, and I've got some resources I can put in, just a little bit of information to set the stage. As you go through this lesson, you might find, so here are some resources that you might find useful or something like that, just a little bit of text. And I've got a description here of a summit that I've got. I might take that out. And then if I go down here, I actually had an activity that I had the participants do in class where they would go and rate themselves. I could have my participants do that in my lesson as well. Not that it would be more rhetorical. They'd be kind of doing it on their own, kind of a think aloud, metacognitive. But where are you in your understanding of OER? Are you at the awareness stage, the informational stage, that type of thing? Could work through that. I then have another activity and ask them, are you aligned with OER? OER is a philosophy when it comes to curriculum, and have it be openness. And so I give them kind of a yes or no, a flip side of the coin type of question. So here's one on curriculum quality. Better to have curriculum built by those with extensive resources to assure quality, or better to have curriculum built by those who are closest to the individual learner or learner's needs. This in its own probably is not put very well for an online self-paced learner to go through. I could go in and reword it. Same thing, I've got more of those. Okay, let me show you one that I did that with. I had a presentation where I went through and I asked people, I wanted to create a presentation on people who wanted to create their own online learning program. We've got schools in the state that are looking to do that. I wanted to talk about that. So I had a presentation, and the first slide was, what's the difference between courses and programs? Then I would talk about it. Well, I decided for the purpose of this, why not create a self-paced lesson and have it be available? So as you can see, I fleshed that out into some text. I started using some instructional design, visual design things, shorter paragraphs, bolding, keywords, that type of thing. And I found that courses versus programs actually should be broken out over multiple slides. I also got to points where it was better to go and do a little bit of think aloud. And so I created a little video for some of the benefits rather than and some of the mistakes and myths. You don't have to use your own video either. In this one, for example, when I get down here to talk about what is OER, there are lots of great videos on some great thinkers to talk about what is OER and have them do that. And that's okay. You can use resources within your lesson, and that's going to be one of our big themes in week 5 when we talk about that. So anyways, that's another thing you can do. Again, if you use Google Drive, you can go and grab that link to it. Hopefully you're familiar with that. You can grab that. You can also go and grab the embed code if you'd like. And embed it within there. I tend to prefer using links instead of embed, but that's another strategy. Okay, so that would be an option. You could create a brand new outline of a lesson. You could take an existing PowerPoint and start to flesh it out, as we've done there. A couple other ideas which would be doable in this course have to do with a spoken recorded lesson, not a text-based one. And for that you use a tool like I'm using Camtasia right now to go and record yourself. And you could use a webcam if you'd like. This one I'm not, doesn't matter. So this one I'm recording my screen. And if I go over here, I've got some examples of where I've done that. So and you've seen these. I've got videos where I've got my volume off.
About week 3 coming up, because week 3 will start on Wednesday, but we do have it open.
And I really don't want to hear myself speak again, but I've gone and just recorded myself talking about a concept. This is a very easy way to do it. Think about the instructional design we talked about. The video that you create should be limited in the amount of time. You can see this one is 13 minutes, which for adults is probably on the longest of the end that you'd like. We talk about having it be about a minute per grade level and maxing out at 15 minutes. But again, we're not too worried about the quality here. I'm just trying to keep you the scope in mind, so you're not creating a gargantuan, type of video. Break it down into a skill that you could talk about and such. And if you've got a website like this that you can go and tour to kind of use as a backdrop, that works really well. Another example is, hey, take that PowerPoint that you've got.
My name is Evan Abbey.
And go ahead
Program Director.
and make a video out of that. You can go in and record yourself speaking while you flip through the PowerPoint. And it's a great way to make a recorded lesson. Now, this can make it pretty long because this PowerPoint's made for a presentation that I give at conferences. It tends to be an hour long. I split the difference and brought it down to 30 minutes, but even this is too long. What would be better yet is to kind of break this up into maybe 3 different lessons and start with a bit here and then have part 2 and part 3. So that's another thing that you could do in YouTube. Again, you can grab the link to this video. You can embed this. This works much better to go and embed within a course. So both of those are ideas for how you can create content. I don't want you to feel like you have to have full featured lessons. You don't have to worry so much about concepts like the built-in assessments within a lesson, built-in interactivity, really fancy visual design, even ADA compliance. Those are things we look at in designing online lessons. We do have in our course, if I go back to our course, in our online lessons section, we do have a lot of different enrichment lessons there, as well as in week 5 too. We've strung some of them out there. But in addition to kind of just the basics of what those lessons look like and how you might create them, probably the only other lesson maybe that might help you out is this one on how to go and plan your lesson. Because I mentioned that if you're starting from scratch, probably the best thing to do would be to go and make an outline for it and such. Well, the planning your lesson right here helps you go through that process. It gives you kind of a step-by-step. You're going to notice a very common way I recommend that planning process. Hey, look at that. I'm using that as part of the lesson. And it tells you, here's how you do that when you go through it, which I find very beneficial. But then it also helps you kind of structure that too. How do you go and identify those topics? How do you arrange those topics? And such. So, and again, some of this is a little bit of an overlap for what we did within our units. So I think you might find that beneficial. That might help you go and create your lesson, regardless of whether your lesson is a spoken recorded one or ultimately a text-based one. Okay, we'll take a look at the next bit here, which will help you in your lesson design as well as help you with the organizing of your course, and that's navigating and transitions, and that will be step 4A, if you will, for our process.